by Professor Matthew Goodwin, academic,
cheers,
political professor, commentator, cheers, TV star, and student, very much yourself, of centre-right politics in the United Kingdom. You're the second person this week I've had him that's written books about me. We had Michael Crick in the other evening. And you wrote Revolt on the Right about UKIP and the rise of UKIP. I just... It's so interesting talking to Alex Crowley there a few minutes ago. You know, with Boris from 2007, all through 2 terms as mayor. You know, he goes through, becomes Foreign Secretary, Prime Minister. And Crowley says, you know, I mean, really what Alex was saying is that Boris never really believed in anything.
I think that certainly came through in his premiership. You know, I remember we first started talking about British politics 10 years ago, 2012. And, you know, at that point we were starting to notice in British politics the emergence of a large number of voters that felt very unhappy with the liberal consensus in Westminster, you know, that was basically pro-EU, pro-immigration, pro the political establishment in Westminster and London. And what happened over the last decade is that that group really grew, and they voted for UKIP, they voted for Brexit, and then they voted for Johnson. I think ultimately, though, Johnson really never connected with the people that put him into power. And I think in that respect, you know, Johnson is the beginning of a bigger problem for the Conservative Party, because whoever succeeds Johnson now, I think, has this really difficult balancing act. They've got to somehow hold those voters in the north, in the Red Wall, in Yorkshire, the Midlands, coastal towns, small towns, and hold the southern shires, middle class, graduate, prosperous. And those two groups of voters are very different, as you will know from your campaigning days. And I just don't see anybody at the moment who I think can pull that off.
Did Johnson take the party down the path of being a social democrat party more than a Conservative party?
Well, somebody wrote this week that one of the ironies of Brexit is that it actually ended up giving us a European model of the economy. It gave us a big state, higher taxes, etc. And I see some truth to that. I think the problem with Johnson, as your previous guest alluded to, you know, Johnson, I don't think really knows who he is ideologically. I think he's all over the shop. He's, you know, here 1 minute, he's there another. And I don't think that, you know, Johnsonism didn't really exist. It was the man with a few 3-word slogans, and that was it. Whoever follows him now has to come in with a serious blueprint for, you know, how they're going to fix Britain. And I can't think of anybody, maybe Margaret Thatcher is the exception, who's coming into power with an in-tray that is this daunting. You know, inflation, productivity crisis, low growth, Ukraine, you know, list goes on and on and on. And they're going to have an ideological blueprint for that. They're going to have a coherent, intellectually sound vision. Thatcher surrounded herself with very clever people. Even Blair got a lot of things wrong, some things right, but surrounded himself with some pretty clever people. Johnson, there was nobody really there. There was nobody in Team Johnson that was sort of, that got it, that had a bigger vision for the country. So whoever follows him...
Did Cummings have a little bit of that in terms of wanting to reform the civil service, etc.?
I think Cummings had a few ideas around, you know, trying to sort of build a technocracy, trying to sort of reform the civil service, but it wasn't very profound. It isn't very profound. I don't think he's sort of in tune with the kind of the realignment that is going on in British politics at the moment. And in a way, I don't think this saga has ended. I think this is just at the end of a chapter